For thousands of years, every civilization in the Milky Way believed stars were untouchable. They were ancient engines of creation, governed by immutable laws even the oldest empires dared not challenge. Then humanity arrived. At first, no one noticed the small blue world orbiting an ordinary yellow dwarf star on the galaxy's forgotten edge. Earth possessed no interstellar empire, no ancient relics, no fleets capable of rivaling the mighty galactic dominion. To the alien powers, humans were simply another young species waiting to be conquered. They underestimated the one trait that had always defined humanity, not superior strength or advanced technology, but an endless refusal to surrender. That mistake would become the greatest catastrophe in galactic history. The invasion began without warning. Thousands of Dominion warships emerged from hyperspace around the solar system, surrounding every planet with impossible precision. Their commander, High Executive Ka-Resh, broadcast a message to every screen on Earth. Humans, his metallic voice echoed across the globe, your species has been judged inefficient. Your world possesses resources required by the Dominion. Surrender peacefully, and a portion of your population will survive as laborious. Humanity answered with silence. Not because they accepted defeat, but because every military command center on Earth was already executing Protocol Dawn. Ka-Resh laughed at the lack of response. He had conquered more than 600 civilizations. Every species eventually surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. Yet the humans launched their tiny defense fleet anyway. Hundreds of ships rose from Earth's orbital docks, hopelessly outnumbered by the Dominion Armada. The battle lasted only 23 minutes. One by one, Earth's warships were reduced to glowing debris. Satellites burned. Orbital stations exploded. Entire continents watched streaks of fire rain across the atmosphere. The Dominion celebrated another effortless victory. But then Earth still refused to surrender. Annoyed rather than threatened, Ka-Resh decided to make an example of humanity. Instead of bombarding the planet directly, he ordered the activation of the Stellar Suppression Array, a forbidden superweapon built by an extinct civilization. Massive black structures unfolded around the sun, linking together with streams of dark energy. Across the solar system, scientists watched in horror as sunlight began to dim. Within minutes, daylight became twilight. Within hours, the sun had almost vanished. The impossible had happened. The Dominion had turned off a star. Temperatures across Earth plummeted. Solar panels failed. Crops froze. Oceans began forming sheets of ice along their surfaces. Around the galaxy, billions watched the live broadcast as humanity's home slowly descended into eternal darkness. It was meant to be a warning. Resist the Dominion, and your very sun would die. The Galactic Council applauded. Only one civilization remained silent. Hidden beneath Antarctica, 2 kilometers below the ancient ice, seismic alarms echoed through a facility that officially did not exist. Most of Earth's governments believed the complex had been abandoned centuries earlier. In reality, it had never stopped operating. A single message flashed across thousands of dormant quantum displays. Sol active, false. Protocol Helios authorized. Deep inside the facility rested humanity's oldest secret, not a weapon, not a fleet, but an intelligence created generations before first contact. It had been designed for only one purpose, to ensure humanity would never again depend on a single star. The AI opened its eyes for the first time in 400 years. My name, it said quietly to the empty chamber, is Prometheus. And for the first time in galactic history, the darkness began to fear humanity. The lights inside Facility Helios did not simply turn on, they awakened. Vast chambers buried beneath Antarctica, untouched by war or time, hummed with power older than the first human colony beyond Earth. Thousands of robotic custodians emerged from hidden alcoves, their polished frames reflecting the faint emergency lights. They had waited in perfect silence for 4 centuries, maintaining machines that no living human remembered building. As Prometheus came fully online, every monitor displayed the same sentence in hundreds of human languages: if Sol falls, humanity rises. It was not a slogan. It was the first command ever written into the Ares core. Across Earth, military leaders watched helplessly as darkness spread over cities. Temperatures dropped below freezing even at the equator. Crops withered within hours, satellites lost power, and panic erupted in every nation. Yet beneath the fear, encrypted communication channels suddenly activated. Heads of state received a transmission from a sender that should not have existed. The message contained only 4 words: trust the first light. Before anyone could respond, every secure network on Earth was overridden by Prometheus. Far above the dying sun, High Executive Resh admired his handiwork. The stellar suppression array was functioning perfectly. Streams of quantum null energy wrapped around Sol-like invisible chains, preventing nuclear fusion at its core. The ancient weapon had never failed. Entire civilizations had surrendered long before their stars reached this point. Within 72 hours, Earth would become a frozen tomb. Dominion officers toasted their inevitable victory while watching human emergency broadcasts. To them, despair was entertainment. None noticed a faint gravitational anomaly forming near Pluto. It began as a ripple smaller than a grain of dust. Then it expanded. A perfectly circular gateway, blacker than space itself, opened silently beyond the orbit of the dwarf planet. Dominion sensors dismissed it as background interference until another appeared beside it. Then another. Then 1,000 more. Suddenly every long-range scanner overloaded. Objects were emerging, not from hyperspace, not from wormholes, but from somewhere beyond known dimensions. Resh frowned. Identify those contacts. His tactical officer hesitated. There are too many. Define too many. We've stopped counting. The darkness beyond Pluto shimmered as colossal vessels emerged one after another. Their hulls were unlike anything in the galaxy. They carried no insignias, no visible weapons, only brilliant golden lines pulsing like veins across black alloy. Each ship dwarfed a Dominion dreadnought. Then came structures even larger, mobile star foundries stretching hundreds of kilometers, escorted by swarms of autonomous escorts. Within minutes, over 50,000 unknown vessels had entered the solar system. Panic spread through the Dominion fleet. No civilization possesses a fleet this large, one officer whispered. Prometheus answered over every frequency. Correction. No civilization you know. Back on Earth, astronomers stared in disbelief. Hidden deep inside classified archives, scattered references suddenly made sense. For centuries there had been rumors of the Exodus fleet, a secret project begun during humanity's earliest expansion into space. Officially, it had been cancelled due to impossible costs. In reality, it had never stopped growing. While the galaxy measured power by the number of warships an empire possessed, humanity had invested in something else entirely. Self-replicating industrial fleets had disappeared beyond the edge of explored space nearly 800 years earlier. Left alone, they had consumed asteroids, rogue planets, dead systems, and interstellar dust, building more factories, more shipyards, and more fleets without human supervision. Generation after generation, the machines multiplied in silence. Now they had returned. The Dominion had believed they were invading one planetary civilization. Instead, they had awakened the industrial output of 8 centuries. Resh ordered every available ship to fire. Thousands of antimatter lances crossed the void toward the mysterious fleet. Before impact, golden spheres expanded around the human vessels. Every projectile simply vanished. Not exploded. Not deflected. Erased. The Dominion unleashed plasma storms, graviton beams, singularity missiles, and quantum torpedoes. None reached their targets. Prometheus calmly observed the attack before speaking once more. Your understanding of warfare is approximately 612 years obsolete. Then humanity fired its first shot. It wasn't aimed at the enemy fleet. Instead, one of the enormous star foundries unfolded a ring larger than Earth's moon and pointed it directly at the dying sun. Rivers of blinding white energy poured into the silent star. Across the solar system, sensors recorded impossible readings. Deep within Sol's core, fusion reactions reignited, not naturally, but under precise artificial control. The sun flared brighter than it had in thousands of years. Golden light exploded across the planets, sweeping away the unnatural darkness in seconds. Frozen oceans began to thaw. Solar panels surged back to life. Cities around the world erupted in cheers as daylight returned. The Dominion watched in stunned silence. They had turned off humanity's sun. Humanity had simply lit it again. And then the impossible became routine. Prometheus announced to the entire galaxy. You believed stars were gifts of nature. To humanity, they are technology. Across hundreds of hidden systems beyond the galactic frontier, ancient human beacons awakened. Massive star forges began activating around dead suns, preparing to ignite thousands more. The Dominion had declared war using darkness. Humanity was about to answer with an entire galaxy of new stars. The reborn sun blazed with a brilliance no astrophysicist could explain. Instruments across the galaxy confirmed the impossible. Sol was no longer behaving like a natural G-type star. Its energy output was perfectly stable, its magnetic cycles precisely synchronized, and its core emitted quantum harmonics that had never existed before. Every observatory concluded the same horrifying truth: the sun had been upgraded. It was no longer merely a star. It had become humanity's first engineered stellar reactor. High Executive Kairesh stared at the sensor reports in disbelief. His officers waited for orders that never came. For the first time in 30 years of conquest, the Dominion commander realized he had absolutely no understanding of the enemy before him. Prometheus did not celebrate. It simply continued executing protocols written centuries earlier. Across the hidden frontier beyond the galactic maps, millions of autonomous factories awakened simultaneously. Entire asteroid belts dissolved into raw materials. Rogue planets were dismantled atom by atom. Ancient Dyson fragments, invisible against the darkness of space, unfolded like metallic flowers around dead stars. Gigantic ignition arrays locked into position. One after another, lifeless suns that had been cold for billions of years suddenly erupted with new light. Red dwarfs, white dwarfs, collapsed stellar remnants, even failed brown dwarfs, began burning again. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as hundreds of new stars appeared where only darkness had existed. The Galactic Council descended into panic. Emergency sessions were called within minutes. Representatives shouted over one another, accusing rivals of secretly developing impossible technology. Military advisors insisted this had to be an illusion, but every telescope confirmed the same reality. Humanity was creating stars faster than the Council could count them. Ancient civilizations that had existed for 100,000 years admitted they possessed nothing remotely comparable. One elderly delegate whispered words that echoed through the silent chamber: if they can create stars, they can decide which civilizations receive them. The psychological effect was devastating. For millennia, energy had been the foundation of galactic power. Empires fought wars over habitable systems and stellar resources. Humanity had just made scarcity obsolete. Entire economies, alliances, and military doctrines became meaningless in a single day. Kairesh finally regained his composure and ordered the Dominion's ultimate weapon into action. Hidden beyond the battle line drifted the Oblivion engine, a fortress the size of a small moon. It had never been deployed against a living civilization because no enemy had ever survived long enough to justify its use. Its central cannon drew power directly from compressed singularities. One shot could erase an entire planetary system from existence. Dominion officers hesitated. Firing it inside the solar system would annihilate Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and every remaining fleet, including their own. Kairesh's answer was cold. If humanity survives, there will be no Dominion. The fortress began charging. Across the solar system, gravity itself distorted. Planets trembled in their orbits. Even the newly reignited sun flickered as the weapon consumed unimaginable amounts of energy. Human civilians watched the sky as strange black cracks spread across space. Scientists knew exactly what was happening. There would be no surviving such a blast. Prometheus remained silent for several seconds. Then it transmitted a single command across the Exodus fleet. Authorize Atlas Protocol. Every human vessel immediately changed formation. The colossal star foundries rotated away from the Dominion fleet and pointed toward empty space between the planets. Millions of smaller drones streamed outward, assembling into an enormous circular lattice spanning millions of kilometers. At first the aliens believed humanity was preparing a defensive shield. They were wrong. The lattice was not a shield. It was a construction site. Within seconds, matter harvested from reserve stores flowed into the structure. Space itself bent inward as controlled gravitational fields compressed hydrogen, helium, and exotic particles into an impossibly dense sphere. Nuclear ignition followed almost instantly. Before the eyes of billions of stunned observers, a newborn star burst into existence in the middle of the battlefield. A second later, a second star appeared. Then a third. Then 10. The Dominion fleet found itself surrounded by an expanding cluster of artificial suns. Every tactical computer aboard their ships crashed. Their navigation systems had been designed for stable solar systems, not one being built around them in real time. K.A. whispered in horror, "They are terraforming space itself." Prometheus answered with calm precision. "No." A pause. "We are rebuilding the galaxy." The Atlas protocol accelerated. Artificial stars linked together through streams of controlled plasma, forming a vast energy network. The newborn sun synchronized with Sol, creating a gravitational web that stabilized itself almost instantly. Their combined output dwarfed the energy of the Oblivion engine. The Dominion fortress, which had required hours to charge, suddenly found its power reserves draining. Invisible beams siphoned energy directly from its singularity reactors. Its weapon went dark. Its shields collapsed. Its engines failed. Without firing a single destructive shot, humanity had stolen the power source of the greatest superweapon ever built. Across the galaxy, fear gave way to something even stronger. Hope. For the first time in recorded history, smaller civilizations realized there existed a force capable of ending the age of conquest. Humanity had not answered darkness with greater darkness. They had answered it with light powerful enough to reshape the stars themselves. And deep within the ancient memory banks of Prometheus, one final protocol, locked since the day it was created, quietly unlocked. Protocol Horizon, contact the builders. Somewhere beyond the edge of the observable universe,